Yeah, if you had a freaking pint of butyric acid, I don't care how big the building is, it's closed and it's staying closed for a while.
And this stuff is like, it's very efficient. It's very, very smelly. It lasts a long time, and a little of it goes a long way.
I know, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers throughout the woods. There's usually a piece of like fusible metal or a piece of glass and a liquid in it that'll blow.
This is undercover video of potential criminal acts being planned. These organizers and activists are talking about setting off butyric acid into the ventilation system and setting off fire alarm sprinklers at a Trump inaugural ball later this week. What you're about to see is part one of our hidden camera investigation into the groups and organizations that seek to cause havoc and violence at the Trump inauguration in Washington, D.C.
I, Ronald Reagan.
I, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Please lock the doors. Please lock the doors. Lock him, lock him, lock him. Don't let them in.
Hey, I just want to say one thing to the person on the phone.
Can you please move
Bob
on
Kramer
my way?
sends his regards.
The next 4 years, we are going to fight Trump and everything he stands for with no quarter asked, no quarter given, no mercy of any kind.
Throw them all under the bus. I mean, just fuck it up. I like the idea of the goal being that they have to pull the inauguration inside.
Be prepared to help make the inauguration a giant clusterfuck.
No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here.
Shortly after the election, we started getting tips that radical groups are planning to derail President-elect Trump's inauguration, perhaps even trying to shut down the city of Washington, D.C. Various groups, some old, some new, have gathered together under the Disrupt J20 umbrella. Progress Unity Fund, Workers' World Party, Americans Take Action, Answer Coalition, and many more. Today's investigation focuses on these guys from the D.C. Anti-Fascist Coalition.
The message has to be that, we do not recognize the city government either. If you try to close us down, we will look for your house, we will burn it, we will physically fight the police if they try to clear one of our places. We will go to war, and you will lose.
Early on, one of our journalists was sent an email inviting him to a planning meeting. The discussion centered around disrupting the Deplorable, a big pro-Trump inaugural ball scheduled the night before the inauguration.
I mean, it would be really interesting if we could stop them from having a Deplorable at all. Yeah.
It was at this meeting where we met Scott Green, Luke Kuhn, and Colin Dunn. They were very gung-ho and clearly well-versed in the dark arts of sabotage.
We already know what we're all there for, so we won't be okay. So we don't have to use the word deplorable at all. Yeah. And things like that. So just in case there are yahoos in there.
Through emails, another meeting was set up at the infamous Comet Ping Pong Pizza Restaurant in Northwest Washington, D.C.
I was thinking of things that would ruin the evening, ruin their outfits, or otherwise make it impossible to continue with their plans, make sure they get nothing accomplished.
The Deplorable is being held here at the National Press Club in downtown Washington, D.C. The plan: set off butyric acid stink bombs, forcing everyone to evacuate the premises.
Yeah, if you had a freaking pint of butyric acid, I don't care how big the building is, it's closed and it's staying closed for a while.
And this stuff is like, it's very efficient. It's very, very smelly. It lasts a long time, and a little of it goes a long way.
We repeated the original plan. We could use more of that same stuff. And then I can rig the cans with a plunger, some stiff rubber bands, and a safety pin thing. So all you got to do is pull the pin and press the plunger, the whole can discharges.
This is the way we have to brainstorm. Think, what can we do that will accomplish the mission? So that is bad enough. That stuff is nasty enough that it will spread.
It will get into the HVAC system and hit the whole building.
The best possible location to get to it is the air intake grill for the entire HVAC.
The actions could constitute a violation of anti-terrorism laws, a felony with a possible 5-year prison sentence and a significant fine. As the meeting continued, Colin Dunn and Scott Green made a plan to scout the location where the Deplorable is being held.
You want to case the place?
I can do that.
I mean, you want to do it together?
Say, it may work better with two people. That way it's not one person's memory saying, here's where everything is.
Yeah. There was also talk about setting off the fire alarm sprinklers in the building. Plan B, if the stink bomb effort failed.
I know, I'm trying to think through how to get all the sprinklers throughout the woods. There's usually a piece of like fusible metal or a piece of glass and a liquid in it that'll blow. I need to research and make sure that we can actually get them to all trigger if we trigger one. Yeah. And the added benefit, everybody as they walk outside will get freezing cold. Yes.
So after we released our first video showing that the anti-fascist group was planning to release butyric acid into ventilation shafts instead of sprinkler systems, they said that they were just playing along and they knew they were being recorded. Well, we have evidence now that shows that definitely is not true. First, they waited for our story to come out before they refuted it. And our meeting at this dinner was over a month ago. And then there's this video filmed in late December where Scott Green continues to discuss the, quote, secret mission, unquote, at the Deplorable almost 2 weeks after the dinner meeting.
The time of arrival outside, we can't decide on that tonight because the people intimately involved with our top secret plan have to meet and know about that and have that finalized, first, which will happen as soon as possible.
And then there was the law enforcement aspect of this. Our attorney went to law enforcement, talked about this, and they called him back immediately. They took this extremely seriously. Our attorney met with the FBI, DC Metro Police, the Secret Service. They knew more about these guys than we did. Then there are the emails, and this is probably the most incredible thing. Our journalists from December to January kept on getting emails from these organizers of their inside plans. First, there was the email on December the 21st where Scott Green sent out the recon email about casing the National Press Club where Tyler was CC'd. There were emails in January where Tyler was continuously CC'd, including this one on January 3rd, quote, I think I've included everyone who will be considered need to know, quote unquote, where Tyler was CC'd. This is not the type of thing that would happen if they were suspect of our journalist. Over the last few hours, we've seen that many media corporations are reluctant to report this story because they can't verify if the information is true. Based on this evidence, we know the DC anti-fascist organizations are lying. But what they can't do is lie to the FBI.
So, simultaneous to the checkpoint blockades in the morning, we're also doing a series of clusterfuck blockades. Where we're going to try to blockade all the major ingress points into the city.
Generally speaking, Nazis will only actually attack people if they strongly outnumber them, because Nazis are essentially cowards. But yeah, throat punching is probably a good thing.
I mean, we have a plan for how to shut down a metro.
It takes 15 seconds, and everyone can leave, but literally, it can't go anywhere. at that point. It's ink, and you can use a really thin chain, you can use heavy chain, a really thin chain, that would require like a bolt cutter to undo. Basically, it would shut down that line.
That was undercover sound about hooking chains up to disrupt and stop Washington's metro rail line. This is part 2 of our undercover investigation into the dark, seedy underworld of Disrupt J20, a group that says openly they want to shut down the inauguration, going well beyond peaceful civil disobedience.
Please lock the doors. Please lock the doors. Lock him, lock him, lock him. Don't let them in.
Hey, I just want to say one thing to the person on the phone.
Can you please move
Bob
on
Kramer
my way?
sends his regards.
The next 4 years, we are going to fight Trump and everything he stands for with no quarter asked, no quarter given, no mercy of any kind.
Throw them all under the bus. I mean, just fuck it up. I like the idea of the goal being that they have to pull the inauguration inside.
Be prepared to help make the inauguration a giant clusterfuck.
No fear, immigrants are welcome here.
Our investigation into the Trump inauguration protests took us to dozens and dozens of meetings from coast to coast over the course of a few months. Groups like Socialist Alternative, League of Conservation Voters, Workers' World Party, Smash Racism DC, Anti-Fascist Coalition, all these groups operating under the umbrella of Disrupt J20, some planning peaceful activities, some planning violent and illegal criminal activities.
A significant number of us, up to a dozen that we've talked to so far at least, expressed interest in arrestable action, civil disobedience. But the agreement that we left Sunday on was we're not going to do that unless, as you pointed out, it's actually effective. We're not just looking to get a notch to say we got arrested. We want to do it so we can have an impact.
It was at one of these meetings that we met Legba Carafor, a Disrupt J20 organizer.
So simultaneous to the checkpoint blockades in the morning, we're also doing a series of clusterfuck blockades where we're going to try to blockade all the major ingress points into the city, which include shutting down major bridges and highway access points, as well as shutting down metro rail. So to do that, we're going to try to break into several teams, kind of like the checkpoints. So if we're interested in doing that, we don't think that these are going to be necessarily arrestable actions, but there is a possibility you could be, so keep that in mind if you want to participate.
Last week, Carafor spoke to the Washington Examiner and gave them an outline of the plans to try to block access to the city. Our infiltration efforts uncovered the details and potentially criminal plots.
So we figured out the trains pull up and go one person's going to walk one end of the train into the bench, and on the other end of the train into the car, walk around the corner, done. It takes 15 seconds, and everyone can leave, because literally, it can't go anywhere at that point. It's ink, and you can use a really thin chain, you can use a heavy chain, a really thin chain, that would require like a bolt cutter to undo. Basically, it would shut down that line. The entire way. So the idea was to hit Metro Center, Gallery Place, and Waltham Plaza. They're all close enough to walk to, and that's every single line in the city.
Disabling trains constitutes an act of terrorism under 18 United States Code 1992. Quote, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and if the offense results in the death of any person, shall be imprisoned for any term of years or for life or subject to death. So after we received this information, we turned it over to the FBI, Secret Service, and the D.C. Metro Police.
And we were able to find evidence that these individuals were hoping to shut down all Metro train transit around the Washington, D.C. area around inauguration.
These details weren't mentioned by Carafor to the Examiner, and our journalist discovered other details that he neglected to make public.
So on the direct action, we had talked about sort of a rotating blockade. The goal is to delay, disrupt, shut down a checkpoint. We have been assigned a checkpoint as a group. Our checkpoint is at 1st and D. So everybody know where that is?
Here it sounds like they are encouraging the demonstrators to pay homeless people to help stop traffic.
So we want to encourage you all to give to the poor and the homeless. Go right down to 2nd and D. Help us to block the vehicle traffic and the pedestrian traffic going to inauguration, and set up tables, food, give outs, whatever, right there near 2nd and D, blocking either direction, and help to block traffic.
Our journalist also infiltrated several groups operating under the main umbrella of Disrupt J20, like the Industrial Workers of the World, a quasi-socialist group, the Metropolitan Anarchist Coordinating Council, and Refuse Fascism.
Our goal is to continue to help shut down the city and make Inauguration a giant clusterfuck that day. So be prepared to help make the Inauguration a giant clusterfuck. So we're not going to publicly announce the route, but we are planning a route that will help us jam up the works of this day. Lots of marching against traffic on one-way streets, stuff like that.
Are you with NAF?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I've been helping. So I helping coordinate the thing tomorrow, and then also the rides down to DC. So I guess I've just been doing stuff around J20. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So essentially, what I mentioned was the call in DC was that there's a bridge near this park or something where people do yoga training usually in the mornings, and so the idea would be that maybe a couple of autonomous affinity groups are out there pretending to do yoga or just coordinated in some way. Someone pretends to do yoga. I know that's part of the way that they've imagined it. And eventually the groups converge on the bridge, take the bridge, and then begin to lead a march toward the center of the town. So that's essential. I don't know what bridge, I don't know what part of the city. I can call my comrade right now and ask him more detail.
They're going to get bigger in size, and they're going to get more and more disruptive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the idea being you start with a few hundred, then you get a few thousand, then you get so many they spill into the streets, then, it's then they're disrupting business as usual, then everybody goes, wow, that's what's happening, I got to be there too, millions, you know what I mean? Literally, it snowballs, okay? Even that you could say. So we're going to get bigger each night.
We do have a lot of ideas for plans, and ultimately we just need people to be able to execute them. One of the things that we're also talking about doing is shutting down the metro. That's going to require some teamwork, probably a rehearsal maybe. But it's possible, and we can do it. We have these plans more or less laid out. We just need people to kind of execute them. We have a plan for how to shut down a metro. We have a plan for how to barricade a bridge. We have all these plans. We just don't have the people yet. So if you're willing to be those people, we're definitely down to have you.
These groups would be nothing without their volunteers. We also spoke to the professional protesters who make these plans a reality.
Do you guys do this on your own too?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've been traveling the country he's been traveling since the RNC, I've been traveling since the DNC.
Well, I don't think I got your last name.
Oh, I'd rather not give my last name, just K.
Okay.
K.
Okay, good.
We were all at Standing Rock. The two of us were there for over 3 months. It's going to be a fucking shit show of a great time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it. If this is gonna happen, then you may as well just fucking have a party.
Throw them all under the bus. Just fuck it up. I like the idea of the goal being that they have to pull the inauguration inside.
And it seems like these guys are just looking for a fight.
So we get to the throat punching. That's what I do. Sure. So this is another thing is that generally speaking, Nazis will only actually attack people if they strongly outnumber them, because Nazis are essentially cowards. If it's 3 of them and a homeless guy, they're going to beat him up. If it's 1 of them and 6 other people, they're going to run the fuck away. But yeah, throat punching is probably a good thing.
So in terms of more of this, generally, actually how to talk to them, say, you and a group encounter a group of Nazis and they're, having a rally or being, very loud with their views, how should you engage them?
I would say that's where you do the throat punching. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
Peaceful protesting is protected under the First Amendment, but these activities seem to be anything but peaceful. After we released our first investigation, Disrupt J20 put out a press release saying that they were just playing along and counter-stinging us. But that did not appear to be true based on the mountain of emails and follow-up video that we have released. It'll be interesting to see what they say next. Although again, we advise them, don't lie to the FBI. Hey there everyone, this is James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. After we released these few videos exposing Disrupt J20, we have a couple updates for you. First, our attorney met with the Terrorism Task Force detective this morning. The representative from the U.S. Attorney's Office was also going to be attending, and our attorney reports to us that they are looking at the full footage. They are investigating, they're analyzing the tapes and the batches of emails we sent them, so they contacted us last night. Looks like there's been some legal developments. Also, U.S. News and World reports that Disrupt J20 has dramatically scaled back their plans to block the flow of traffic as a result of the undercover videos. This is this man named Legba Carafor who was caught on tape talking about chaining down the metro trains, which is clearly a terroristic act. That's in addition to all the butyric acid they're going to plan to put into the vent shafts of the National Press Club tomorrow night. Also, the Deplorable organizers have informed me that a couple of these people are actually signed up to be at the Deplorable. They have refunded their tickets and have filed restraining orders and civil charges against these organizers. This all happened in the last 24 hours. Finally, perhaps the most fascinating development is I just got off the radio with Sean Hannity, and the author of this Huffington Post piece about the supposed counter sting of one of our reporters a few weeks ago that had nothing to do with this. I was expecting a hostile debate with this Huffington Post writer, Ryan Grimm. Ryan endorsed Project Veritas and said that he thought we did great work with the J20 group. Shocking, but not shocking to me, because this was all very true. The law enforcement says it's true. Now the Huffington Post says that this is all true. Will CNN and Fox News put it on TV? That's your job. Tweet this out, tweet at all the anchors, and ask them to play this footage, which is being reviewed by the FBI, the Secret Service, and counterterrorism as I speak, and let's get this on television. Let's try to protect people tomorrow and Friday.